The CEO asked the single black dad to meet her parents as her boyfriend. His reply shocked her. The living room is small, warm light from a single floor lamp, the smell of jerked chicken still hanging in the air. A woman in a designer blazer stands near the door, trembling. Her face is flushed, red creeping up her neck, fury and shame battling for control. Across from her, a man, tall, lean, close-cropped hair graying at the temples, dark brown skin catching the lamplight. His hands are still, resting at his sides, the hands of someone who's learned to control every visible emotion. His voice is calm, surgical. "You didn't ask because you didn't want to know," he says. "You wanted me exactly this size." The woman's mouth opens, closes. Her breath is shallow, uneven. "Who are you?" she whispers. The man doesn't blink. "I'm the man who cleans your floors. The man you've been dating for 4 months. The man you just asked to meet your parents at a gala in front of the governor." She shakes her head, trying to rebuild her composure. "That's not what I—" "You want to prove something to your father," he continues, his tone never rising. "You want to walk in with me on your arm and show him you're evolved, that you see value where he doesn't. I'm not your boyfriend. I'm your statement piece." The air leaves the room. A small voice breaks the silence. A child, 9 years old, standing in the hallway. Barrettes in her hair, eyes too sharp for her age. "He's my dad," she says quietly, "and he used to save people for a living." The woman stares at the man, really looks at him for the first time, and realizes she has no idea who he is. If you believe that love is not a performance, that real connection requires seeing people as they are, not as we need them to be, then stay with this story, because what happens next will shatter every assumption you have about power, worth, and the cost of being truly seen. Before we begin, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments, have you ever been underestimated by someone who claimed to care about you? But to understand how we got here, to this moment in this small living room, with a CEO realizing she's been dating a man she never actually met, we need to go back 4 months. To the night a custodian said something a lonely woman couldn't forget. The Marriott Marquis lobby smelled like expensive perfume and leftover ambition. Darnell pushed his mop cart past the elevators just after 11. The grand ballroom had hosted a tech summit earlier that evening. Now it was empty, except for him. He wore navy coveralls with his first name stitched above the pocket. The fabric was soft from too many washes. His boots squeaked faintly against the marble as he moved through the space. Methodical and invisible. The ballroom floor was sticky with spilled champagne. White tablecloths lay crumpled on chairs. Someone had left a PowerPoint clicker on the podium. Darnell picked it up and set it on the lost and found cart. He worked alone. Always had. The night shift suited him. Fewer people. Fewer questions. Fewer chances to be seen. His hands moved without thought. Wipe down tables. Stack chairs. Sweep the stage. Mop in long, even strokes from back to front. He'd been doing this for 10 years. 10 years of hotel ballrooms and conference halls. 10 years of cleaning up after people who never looked at him twice. His skin was dark brown, worn smooth at the knuckles from years of work. His hair was cropped close, graying at the temples. He was tall but carried himself smaller, shoulders slightly rounded, eyes down. The posture of a man who'd learned not to take up space. At 2 in the morning, he wheeled the cart back toward the service elevator. The lobby was nearly empty. Just a woman sitting alone near the fireplace, laptop open, fingers flying across the keys. Darnell had seen her before. She stayed at the hotel twice a month. Always the same routine. Late-night work sessions in the lobby. Designer suits even at midnight. The kind of woman who never stopped performing. He moved past her toward the trash bin near the seating area. Kept his head down. Reached for the bin liner. "Men never listen." Her voice cut through the quiet. Sharp. Bitter. Darnell paused. She wasn't talking to him. She was talking to her screen. Or maybe to herself. Her fingers had stopped moving. She stared at her laptop like it had personally betrayed her. He should have kept walking. Should have emptied the trash and moved on. That was the rule. Don't engage. Don't make eye contact. Don't give people a reason to remember you. But something in her voice caught him. The exhaustion underneath the anger. The loneliness. He pulled the trash liner from the bin, tied it off slowly. People don't listen. Because we're not usually saying what we mean, he said quietly. He didn't look at her, just kept working. Silence. Then the sound of her head turning. Darnell tied the new liner into the bin. His heart beat a little faster. He'd broken his own rule, spoken when he should have stayed silent. What did you just say? Her voice was different now, softer, curious. He straightened, met her eyes for half a second before looking away. Nothing. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. No, She closed her laptop, studied him. That's the most insightful thing anyone said to me in months. Darnell nodded once. Polite, non-committal. He moved the cart toward the elevator. Wait. He stopped. What's your name? He turned back. She was standing now. Tall, sharp features. The kind of woman who was used to people answering when she asked. Darnell, he said. Lillian. She extended her hand. He looked at it for a beat too long, then shook it. Her grip was firm, controlled. His hands were rough against her palm. Thank you, she said. For that, I needed to hear it. Yes, ma'am. He released her hand and pushed the cart into the service elevator. The doors closed on her face. She was still watching him. Darnell leaned against the elevator wall as it descended. His reflection stared back from the polished metal. A tired man in coveralls, graying hair, shadows under his eyes. He thought about the woman in the lobby, the way she'd looked at him, like she was trying to solve a puzzle. He should have kept his mouth shut. At 3:30, he clocked out. The parking garage was cold and empty. His Honda Civic sat in the corner under a flickering light. 10 years old, dented bumper. The back seat still had Amara's booster seat, even though she'd outgrown it 2 years ago. He drove south through quiet streets, past the glass towers of downtown, past the gentrified neighborhoods with their coffee shops and yoga studios, into the blocks where the houses got smaller and the streetlights stayed broken for months. His duplex sat at the end of a narrow street, peeling paint, chain-link fence, a front porch that sagged on one side. Inside, the living room was clean but worn. Second-hand couch, TV on a plastic stand, a framed photo on the mantel, him, a woman with warm eyes and a baby girl. Amara's bedroom door was cracked open. He checked on her like he did every night. She was asleep, one arm flung over her pillow, barrettes still in her hair because she'd refused to take them out before bed. 9 years old, sharp as a blade, always asking why. She didn't know her father used to be someone else. Darnell closed her door softly and sat on the couch in the dark. He thought about the woman in the lobby again. Lillian, the way she'd thanked him for 7 words. He hadn't meant to say them, hadn't meant to be noticed. But something about her voice, tired, lonely, trying so hard to hold it together, had reminded him of someone, of a life he used to live, of a version of himself he'd buried 10 years ago. He stared at the photo on the mantel until his eyes burned. Then he went to bed. 3 days later, she was waiting for him in the lobby again. Lillian showed up the following week. Same spot in the lobby, same laptop, same expensive suit that probably cost more than Darnell's monthly rent. She smiled when she saw him pushing the cart past the elevators. Darnell, he stopped, nodded politely. Ma'am, I've been thinking about what you said, about people not saying what they mean. She closed her laptop. You're right. Most conversations are just performance. He didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. Do you have a break coming up? I'd love to buy you a coffee. The hotel had a coffee shop on the 2nd floor. It stayed open until 3 a.m. for business travelers who couldn't sleep. Darnell had never been inside. He looked at his cart, at the lobby floor that still needed mopping. I don't get a break until 1:30, he said. Perfect, I'll be here. She was, waiting at a table near the window when he walked in, still wearing his coveralls. She'd ordered for him already. Black coffee, no sugar. I guessed, she said. You seem like a black coffee person. She was right, but he didn't tell her that. They talked for 20 minutes, or rather she talked, about her company, about a client who'd lied to her for 6 months, about her father who thought she only got the CEO job because of his connections. Darnell listened, asked a question here and there, watched her hands move when she spoke. She was lonely. He could see it in the way she leaned forward, in the way she filled every silence with words, in the way she kept checking if he was still paying attention. When his break ended, she thanked him, said she'd like to do it again. He said okay. It became a routine. Every Tuesday and Thursday night, she'd be in the lobby. They'd meet for coffee during his break. She'd talk. He'd listen. By December, she started bringing him dinner. Takeout from places he'd never been to. Thai food, Indian, Japanese. She'd apologize for the containers, say she hoped he didn't mind eating in the hotel cafe. He never told her he was grateful. That most nights he ate peanut butter sandwiches at 3 a.m., standing over the kitchen sink. In January, she asked if he wanted to meet outside the hotel, a wine bar in Midtown, Saturday night. If he was free, he was. Amara spent Saturday nights with Keisha's sister. The wine bar had exposed brick and soft lighting. Everyone there looked like Lillian, polished, expensive, speaking in that particular volume that said they were important. Darnell wore jeans and a button-down shirt, his nicest shoes. He still looked out of place. Lillian didn't seem to notice. She introduced him to a friend from law school. "This is Darnell. He works at the Marriott." The friend smiled, asked what he did there. "Maintenance," Darnell said. The friend nodded, lost interest immediately, turned back to Lillian to talk about someone's engagement. Darnell sipped water and watched Lillian perform. She laughed louder here, touched people's arms when she made a point, used words like synergy and optics. On the drive home, she apologized, said her friends could be shallow. He said it was fine. "You're so calm," she said. "Nothing seems to bother you." He didn't correct her, didn't tell her that he'd learned to make himself small. That calm was just another word for invisible. In February, Lillian showed up at his duplex unannounced, 3 p.m. on a Saturday. She'd been driving by, she said, thought she'd see if he was home. Darnell didn't mention that his duplex was nowhere near her part of town. Amara answered the door. She wore purple leggings and a t-shirt with a unicorn on it. Her barrettes were shaped like butterflies. "Hi," she said. "Are you Daddy's friend?" "I am. You must be Amara." Amara studied her, took in the designer purse, the perfectly styled hair, the way she stood like she was used to being the smartest person in the room. "You're pretty," Amara said finally. Lillian smiled. "Thank you, sweetheart." Darnell came to the door drying his hands on a dish towel. The apartment smelled like the chili he'd been cooking. The TV was on. Cartoon voices filled the small living room. "Lillian, didn't expect to see you. I was in the neighborhood." She glanced past him into the duplex. Her eyes took in everything. The worn couch, the plastic TV stand, the framed photo on the mantel. "Can I come in for a minute?" He stepped aside. Amara sat back down on the couch, kept the TV on but muted it, watched them with the intensity of a child who understood more than she should. Lillian stayed for 15 minutes, complimented the chili, asked Amara about school, smiled at all the right moments. When she left, Amara waited until the door closed. "Do you like her, Daddy?" Darnell sat down beside her, unmuted the TV. "I'm trying to figure out if she likes me," he said quietly, "or if she likes the idea of me." Amara tilted her head. "What's the difference?" "One means she sees me. The other means she sees what she wants to see." Amara thought about that. Then she leaned against his shoulder and went back to watching cartoons. The visits continued. A bookstore reading in Little 5 Points. A jazz club in Sweet Auburn. Always places that felt curated, tasteful. The kind of spots where Lillian could feel cultured without actually leaving her comfort zone. She never invited him to work events. Never introduced him to anyone from her company. Never asked him to meet her parents or her colleagues or anyone who mattered in the world she actually lived in. Darnell noticed, said nothing. By mid-March, they'd been seeing each other for 4 months. Long enough that Lillian had started using the word we. Long enough that she'd stopped apologizing for showing up at his duplex. Long enough that Darnell had started to wonder if this was real or if he was just a project she'd taken on to prove something to herself. On a Thursday evening, she showed up at his door with takeout and an expression he hadn't seen before. Nervous energy rolled off her in waves. "I brought Thai," she said. "I hope that's okay." "It's fine." She sat at his kitchen table while he got plates. Her fingers drummed against the wood. Her eyes kept darting to him and then away. Amara came out of her room, said hello, got herself a plate without being asked and sat down at the table between them. They ate in near silence. Lillian barely touched her food. Finally, she set down her fork and took a breath. I need to ask you something. Darnell looked at Amara, then at Lillian. The takeout containers sat forgotten between them. My parents are hosting their annual foundation gala this weekend, Lillian said. Her voice was bright but brittle. It's a big deal. Donors, press. The governor's supposed to be there. She paused, twisted her napkin between her fingers. I want you to come with me, as my boyfriend. I want them to meet you. The kitchen went quiet. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a car alarm chirped twice and went silent. Amara's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. She set it down carefully. Her eyes moved from Lillian to her father. Darnell reached for his water glass, took a slow drink, set it back down with precision. Why? He asked. Lillian laughed, too quickly. Because I want them to know you, because you're important to me. Darnell didn't smile. His dark eyes held hers, steady and unblinking. Lillian, he said quietly, why do you want me, specifically me, a custodian you've been dating for 4 months, to meet your parents at a gala in front of the governor? The question landed like a blade. Lillian's mouth opened, closed, her hands fluttered. I thought it would be nice. You want to prove something? His voice was calm, clinical, the same tone he'd used to tell her, people don't say what they mean. You want to walk in with me on your arm and show your father that you're not like him, that you see value where he doesn't, that you're evolved. He leaned back in his chair. I'm not your boyfriend, Lillian. I'm your statement piece. The color drained from her face, then rushed back, red creeping up her neck. That's not... How dare you? You're embarrassed by me, Darnell said. Not enough to stop seeing me, but enough that you've never invited me to a work function, never introduced me to your colleagues, never asked me to meet anyone who matters in your actual life. That's not true. It is. Lillian stood, her chair scraped against the linoleum. You don't know anything about me. Darnell stood too, started clearing plates. His movements were unhurried, controlled, the same way he mopped floors, the same way he stacked chairs. I've spent 10 years making myself invisible, he said, because the last time I used my voice for something that mattered, I couldn't save the person I loved most. He carried the plates to the sink, ran water over them. You've spent 4 months with me, and you never once asked why a man with my diction, my manners, my hands, is cleaning hotel floors at night. Lillian's breath came faster, shallower. You didn't ask because you didn't want to know. You wanted me exactly this size. The water ran. Steam rose from the sink. Darnell turned off the tap. I know you're the CEO of a crisis management firm, he continued. His voice never rose, never sharpened. And 3 weeks ago, you told me your biggest client, Turson Pharma, is being extorted by a whistleblower. $2 million internal emails. You said your team can't find him, can't reason with him, can't make him stop. Lillian froze. How did you... I told you that in confidence. The whistleblower's name is Aaron Lim. Her eyes went wide. He's a former QA director, mid-40s, divorced. 2 kids in private school he can't afford anymore. Darnell dried his hands on a dish towel, folded it precisely. He's not extorting you for money. He's extorting you for acknowledgement. He wants Turson to admit they knew about the contamination and covered it up. He doesn't want to be paid off. He wants to be heard. Lillian's hands trembled. She gripped the back of the chair. I can talk him down, Darnell said. I can have this resolved in 72 hours. No leaks, no lawyers, no press. He met her eyes. Something shifted in his gaze. Something that had been hidden beneath years of careful invisibility. Authority, precision, a bedrock competence that made everything Lillian had ever accomplished feel like performance. But I won't do it so you can bring me to a gala and feel good about yourself. I'll do it because it's the right thing to do. And because people like Aaron Lim deserve to be heard by someone who knows how to listen. Lillian's mouth opened. No sound came out. Who are you? She whispered. Amara spoke for the first time since Lillian had made her ask. Her voice was small, certain. He's my dad, and he used to save people for a living. Lillian looked at the girl. at the butterfly barrettes in her hair, at the way she sat perfectly still, watching everything. Then back at Darnell. "I was a federal hostage negotiator for 6 years," he said. "FBI Crisis Response Unit. I've talked armed militants into surrendering in 4 languages. I've de-escalated crises you can't imagine." He walked to the front door, opened it. Cold air rushed in. "And then I lost my wife because I was too busy saving strangers to save her. So I stopped. I chose this life, this small, quiet life, because I needed to remember what mattered." His hand rested on the doorknob. The streetlight outside cast his shadow long across the floor. "You saw a custodian and thought you could fix me. I saw a lonely woman and thought maybe you were strong enough to see me whole." He looked at her with something close to pity. "I was wrong. You should go." Lillian stood in the middle of his kitchen, shaking. Her designer purse hung from the chair. Her car keys were still in her hand. She opened her mouth, closed it, walked to the door, stopped just before she reached it. I never meant—" "I know," Darnell said quietly. "That's the problem." She walked out into the night. He closed the door behind her. The lock clicked. Final. Amara sat at the table, her dinner cold on her plate. She looked at her father. "Are you okay, Daddy?" Darnell came back to the table, sat down beside her. His shoulders dropped. The authority that had filled his voice was gone. He was just tired now. "Yeah, baby, I'm okay." "She didn't know who you were." "No." "Are you going to tell her?" "I think I just did." Outside, an engine started. Headlights swept across the living room wall, then faded. Darnell put his arm around his daughter. She leaned into him. "Why didn't you tell her before?" Amara asked. "Because I wanted to see if she could love me when I was nobody special." "You're special to me." "I know." They sat in silence. The refrigerator hummed. The house settled around them. Darnell had no way of knowing that Lillian was already pulling into her parking garage, already running up the stairs to her penthouse, already opening her laptop with shaking hands to search for a name she should have asked about months ago. Lillian's hands shook on the steering wheel. The city lights blurred past her windows as she drove north through Atlanta. Her breath came in short, uneven pulls. She'd been dismissed. By a custodian. By a man she'd been dating as a charity project. No, not a custodian. She didn't know what he was. Her penthouse was dark and silent when she walked in. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Marble countertops, designer furniture, everything precise and expensive and empty. She dropped her purse on the counter, pulled out her laptop. Her fingers moved before she'd fully decided what she was doing. Background check databases, LexisNexis, federal employment records, news archives. She typed, Darnell Price, Atlanta. The results loaded slowly, then all at once. Darnell Price, FBI Crisis Response Unit, 2008 to 2018. Her screen filled with hits, personnel records, commendations, news articles with his name buried in the text. She clicked on an image, a photo from 2011. Darnell in a charcoal suit, standing beside the FBI director at a press conference. His face was younger but the same, sharp cheekbones, graying temples, those steady dark eyes. The caption read, "Federal negotiators successfully resolved hostage situation in Bogota, Colombia. 14 civilians released unharmed." Lillian stared at the photo. That was him. That was the man who'd mopped her hotel lobby floors at 2 in the morning. She scrolled through more articles. Miami, 2015. Armed bank robbery. Standoff lasted 6 hours. Darnell Price, lead negotiator, talked the suspect into surrendering without shots fired. Detroit, 2017. Domestic barricade situation. Suspect armed with a shotgun, 2 children in the house. Negotiation lasted 9 hours. Everyone walked out alive. The articles called him exceptional, precise. One of the best crisis negotiators in the country. Lillian's chest tightened. Her breath was shallow. She'd asked him if he went to college. She'd explained her job to him slowly, using simple words, making sure he understood. She'd brought him takeout like he was a charity case. And he'd listened, asked questions. Let her believe he was simple. She scrolled back to the Bogota photo, studied his face, the same calm expression he'd worn in her hotel lobby, The same hands that had cleared her dinner plates tonight. A federal negotiator. She thought about every conversation they'd had. His questions hadn't been simple. They'd been precise, careful, the kind of questions that made her talk more than she meant to. He'd been reading her the whole time. "I know you're the CEO of a crisis management firm," he'd said tonight, "and 3 weeks ago, you told me your biggest client is being extorted by a whistleblower." She told him about Turson Pharma one night after too much wine, vented about Aaron Lim, about the leaked emails, about her team's failure to contain it, and he'd listened, said nothing. Let her assume he didn't fully understand, but he'd understood everything. The whistleblower's name is Aaron Lim. He's a former QA director, mid-40s, divorced, 2 kids in private school he can't afford anymore. How did he know that? She'd never mentioned Aaron's background. Her own team hadn't dug that deep, because Darnell had, quietly, while she'd been patronizing him. Lillian closed her laptop, stood in her dark living room. The city glittered below her windows. Millions of lights, millions of people she'd never see. She was the smartest person in every room. That's what she'd built her career on. That's what her father had never believed about her. And she'd just spent 4 months dating a man who was smarter than her, more competent than her, more qualified to solve her biggest crisis than anyone on her payroll. And she'd never asked his last name. Her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen. An email from her assistant, Jenna. Subject line, "I quit." Lillian opened it. 3 sentences, professional, final, effective immediately. Another buzz, a news alert. Turson Pharma whistleblower releases internal email to press. Her vision blurred. She sat down on her couch. Opened the news article with shaking hands. Aaron Lim had leaked a single email. Just one. But it was damning. Turson executives discussing contamination reports they'd buried, choosing profit over safety. The media was already circling. 3 articles in the past hour. More coming. Her phone rang. The Turson CEO. She let it go to voicemail. Another call. Her board chair. She didn't answer. By tomorrow morning, they'd be calling for her resignation. Her firm's entire reputation was built on discretion, damage control, making problems disappear. She couldn't make this one disappear. She sat in the dark for an hour, maybe more. The city lights blurred into streaks. Her perfect life dissolving like sugar in water. "I can have this resolved in 72 hours, Darnell had said. No leaks, no lawyers, no press. He could have helped her, months ago, when she first mentioned it, when there was still time to contain it, but she'd never asked, because she'd wanted him small, manageable, a project she could shape. "You wanted me exactly this size." Her phone buzzed again. Another email, another news alert, the crisis spreading like fire. Lillian stood, walked to her home office, turned on the light. She pulled up a contract template, filled in the blanks with trembling fingers. Consulting agreement, $150,000, 48 hours. Solve the Aaron Lim crisis. Save Meridian Global. She printed it, signed it, put it in her bag. It was almost midnight, too late to go back to his duplex. But she'd go first thing in the morning. She'd beg if she had to, because Darnell Price was the only person who could save her now, and she'd spent 4 months making sure he had every reason to say no. Darnell sat on the couch in the dark. The only light came from the street lamp outside, casting long shadows across the living room floor. Amara was asleep. He'd checked on her twice already. She'd asked him if he was okay before bed. He'd said yes. He wasn't. The framed photo on the mantel caught the dim light. Him. Keisha. Baby Amara. 2015. They were sitting on a blanket in Piedmont Park. Keisha's head was thrown back, laughing at something he'd said. Amara was reaching for the camera with pudgy hands. Darnell had taken that woman for granted, assumed she'd always be there. He closed his eyes. Let the memory come. 2018. Spring. He'd been at the height of everything. Sharp suits, federal briefings, a corner office at the field office downtown. People listened when he spoke, respected his opinion, called him when situations went bad. Keisha had been brilliant too, a social worker with the county. She believed in second chances even when no one else did. Believed people could change if someone just listened to them. They'd been planning Amara's 4th birthday party. Nothing fancy. Just family. Cake from the grocery store. Balloons from the dollar store. Keisha had wanted to invite the neighbors' kids too. Make it a real celebration. She'd been working late that Tuesday night. A case that worried her. A young mother trapped in a bad situation. Domestic violence. Keisha had stayed late filing emergency placement papers, trying to get the woman and her kids somewhere safe. She'd called Darnell at 9, said she was heading home. She'd pick up Chinese food on the way. He should help Amara brush her teeth and get ready for bed. "I love you," she'd said. "Love you too." Those were the last words he ever spoke to her. The drunk driver ran a red light at the intersection of Memorial and Flat Shoals, hit Keisha's car on the driver's side. She died before the ambulance arrived. Darnell opened his eyes, stared at the ceiling. The funeral had been the hardest day of his life, harder than any hostage situation, harder than any armed standoff. He'd stood at her grave and tried to negotiate with God, with fate, with anyone who would listen. He'd offered everything: his career, his reputation, his own life. "Take me instead. Bring her back. Please." But there was no one on the other end of that negotiation. No voice in his earpiece telling him what to say. No protocol for this kind of loss. His entire skill set, talking people down, finding common ground, saving lives, was useless. He couldn't save her. 3 weeks after the funeral, he resigned. His supervisor tried to talk him out of it. Offered leave, counseling, time. Darnell said no. He couldn't go back to work saving strangers when he'd failed to save the person who mattered most. He took the first job he could find that didn't require him to speak. Night custodian at the Marriott. 11 to 7, alone with a mop and a cart and silence. He picked up Amara from Keisha's sister every afternoon at 3, made dinner, helped with homework, read bedtime stories in voices that used to command crisis rooms. He'd chosen invisibility, chosen smallness, chosen a life where no one expected anything from him except clean floors and empty trash cans, because visibility had cost him everything. Darnell stood, walked to the mantel, picked up the photo. His thumb traced Keisha's face through the glass. She'd have been disappointed in him tonight. The way he'd spoken to Lillian, the coldness in his voice, the precision he'd used to cut her down. But she also would have understood. Keisha had always seen through people's performances. She would have seen what Lillian was doing, what Lillian wanted from him. "You deserve better than that," Keisha would have said. Darnell set the photo back down, looked toward Amara's bedroom door. Light from her nightlight leaked underneath. She still slept with it on. Still had the stuffed elephant Keisha had given her. 9 years old, and she'd only known her mother for 4 of them. She had Keisha's eyes, Keisha's stubborn belief that her father could do anything. "He's my dad, and he used to save people for a living." Amara had said that so simply, so certainly, like it was just a fact about him, not something he'd buried, not something he'd spent 10 years running from. Darnell walked to her door, opened it an inch, watched her sleep. She kicked off her covers again. He pulled them back up over her shoulders. She stirred, muttered something in her sleep. Didn't wake. He closed the door softly, went back to the living room, back to the photo on the mantel. "I thought I was done, Keisha," he whispered to the glass, to the woman who couldn't hear him, to the memory of someone who'd believed he could save the world. "But I think she's about to make me choose again." The streetlight flickered outside. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked twice and went quiet. Darnell sat back down on the couch. Thought about Lillian driving home right now, furious, humiliated, running his name through every database she could access. She'd find out who he was, what he'd been, and tomorrow, maybe the next day, she'd come back. Not because she saw him, but because she needed him. And he'd have to decide if he was going to stay invisible or if he was finally going to use his voice again. The knock came at 8 in the morning. Darnell was in the kitchen making coffee. Amara sat at the table with a bowl of cereal, eyes on the TV. Cartoons played at low volume. He looked through the peephole. Lillian stood on the porch, designer coat, sunglasses even though the sky was overcast, a folder clutched against her chest. Her eyes were red. Darnell unlocked the door, opened it halfway. Lillian, I need to talk to you. He stepped aside, let her in. Amara looked up from her cereal, studied Lillian with the careful attention of a child who'd learned to read a room. She didn't say hello. Lillian pulled off her sunglasses. Her makeup was smudged. She'd tried to fix it, but the damage was still visible. Sleepless eyes, tight mouth. Can we talk? She asked. We're talking. Alone? Darnell glanced at Amara. She kept eating her cereal, pretending not to listen. She's fine, Darnell said. What do you need? Lillian opened the folder, pulled out a contract. Her hands shook as she held it out. I'm offering you $150,000. Consulting fee, 48 hours. Solve the Aaron Lim situation. Save my company. Darnell didn't take the contract. He just looked at her. Please, Lillian said. Her voice cracked. I know I screwed up. I know I didn't see you, but I'm asking now. Please. The TV volume dropped. Amara had found the remote, muted it. She sat perfectly still on the couch watching. Darnell took the contract, read it slowly. Standard consulting agreement, his name at the top. Scope of work, crisis resolution, Turson Pharma whistleblower situation, payment terms, liability clauses. He folded it once, handed it back. No. Lillian's face went white. What? I'm not taking this. Why not? You said you could fix it. You said 72 hours. I said I could talk Aaron Lim down. I didn't say I'd do it for you. Tears started down her face. She didn't wipe them away. Darnell, please. My assistant quit this morning. Aaron leaked another email last night. The media is everywhere. My board is calling for my resignation. If I don't fix this in the next 2 days, I lose everything. Darnell walked to the kitchen, poured himself coffee. His movements were unhurried, deliberate. You're not asking me to help Aaron Lim, he said quietly. You're asking me to save your reputation. Those aren't the same thing. I don't understand. Yes, you do. He turned to face her, leaned against the counter. The morning light from the window caught the gray in his hair, the dark brown of his skin, the stillness in his eyes. If you want this fixed, you'll do it the right way. You'll call Turson Pharma. You'll tell them to issue a public acknowledgement of the contamination. You'll offer Aaron a formal apology and a settlement that doesn't require an NDA. Lillian's mouth opened. That's insane. They'll never. Then I'll talk to him, not before. Do you understand what you're asking? That'll cost them hundreds of millions in lawsuits. They'll pull their contract. My firm will be finished. Yes, Darnell said. It will. But it's the truth. And the truth is the only negotiation that lasts. The kitchen clock ticked. Outside, a car passed. Someone's dog barked twice. Lillian stood in the middle of his living room, expensive coat hanging open, contract limp in her hand. She looked at him like he'd just asked her to jump off a bridge. I can't do that. Then I can't help you. You don't understand? I understand perfectly. You want me to use my skills to protect people who poison their own product, to silence a man who's trying to tell the truth. You want me to be complicit. That's not what I'm asking. That's exactly what you're asking. Lillian's breath came faster. Her composure was cracking. The polished CEO was breaking apart into something raw and desperate. What am I supposed to do? Make a choice. She looked at him, then at Amara, who sat motionless on the couch, cereal forgotten, watching everything with eyes too sharp for 9 years old. Amara met Lillian's gaze, didn't look away. Lillian turned back to Darnell. You could save me right now. You have the power to... I have the power to do what's right, not what's easy. Lillian folded the contract, put it back in the folder. Her hands were shaking so hard she almost dropped it. She walked to the door, stopped with her hand on the knob. I came here because I thought maybe... You thought I'd be grateful, Darnell said. You thought I'd jump at the chance to prove myself to you, to show you I'm worth more than you assumed. She didn't turn around. I don't need to prove anything to you, Lillian. You need to prove something to yourself. She opened the door. Cold air rushed in. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know. She left. The door closed behind her. Darnell listened to her footsteps on the porch. The car door opening, the engine starting, the sound fading down the street. He walked to the couch, sat down beside Amara. She unmuted the TV. Cartoons played. Neither of them watched. "Are you going to help her?" Amara asked. Darnell looked at his daughter, at the butterfly barrettes in her hair, at the way she sat with her knees pulled up, still wearing her pajamas, trying to understand adult problems with a child's clarity. Only if she helps herself first. Amara thought about that. Then she picked up her cereal bowl, took a bite. The cereal had gone soggy. "Is she going to do it?" Amara asked. "The thing you said?" Darnell didn't answer right away. He thought about Lillian driving back to her penthouse, about the choice she'd have to make, about whether she was strong enough to lose everything in order to do what was right. "I don't know, baby," he said finally, "but that's her decision to make, not mine." They sat together in the quiet. The TV played. The morning stretched ahead, and somewhere across the city, Lillian Cross was deciding who she wanted to be. Friday morning, Lillian's phone rang before she was fully awake. Her board chair. His voice was cold. "Emergency meeting, 10 a.m. You need to explain how our crisis management firm is in the middle of a crisis we can't manage." The call ended before she could respond. She showered, put on her armor, Armani suit, heels that clicked with authority, makeup that hid the fact she'd slept 2 hours. She looked in the mirror and saw someone she didn't recognize anymore. Her office building felt different when she walked in. People looked at her sideways, whispered when she passed. The board meeting was a massacre. 6 faces on a video screen, all men, all older, all convinced she'd lost control. "Turson Pharma is threatening to pull their contract," her chair said. "That's 40% of our revenue. Aaron Lim leaked another email last night. The media is calling us complicit. What's your plan?" Lillian opened her mouth, closed it. She thought about Darnell's voice. Calm, certain. "You're not asking me to help Aaron Lim. You're asking me to save your reputation." "Lillian?" The chair leaned toward his camera. "We're waiting." "I have a proposal," she said. Her voice sounded steadier than she felt. "We advised Turson to issue a public acknowledgement of the contamination, a formal apology to Aaron Lim, a settlement without an NDA." Silence, then laughter. One of the board members actually laughed. "You want us to tell our biggest client to admit fault publicly? To pay off the man trying to destroy them? Are you out of your mind?" "It's the truth," Lillian said. "And it's the only way this ends. The only way this ends is with you cleaning out your desk." The call disconnected. Lillian sat in her empty office, stared at her reflection in the dark computer screen. She had 48 hours, maybe less. At noon, she called Turson's legal team, presented Darnell's proposal. They listened in silence. Then the lead counsel spoke. "Ms. Cross, we pay you to make problems disappear, not create bigger ones." "This won't disappear. It'll only get worse." "Then maybe we need a different firm." The line went dead. By Friday evening, 3 more emails had leaked. Photos of internal memos, executive conversations about cutting costs by skipping quality checks, evidence that Turson had known about contamination for 18 months. The media was everywhere. CNN, the Wall Street Journal, Twitter trending with Turson's name next to corruption and cover-up. Lillian's phone rang constantly. Reporters, former clients, competitors smelling blood. She turned it off, sat in the dark. Saturday morning, she woke up on her office couch. Her neck hurt. Her mouth tasted like coffee and regret. She opened her laptop, started making a list. Option 1. Hire a fixer, someone who could make Aaron Lim disappear from the narrative. Discredit him, find dirt, turn him into the villain. She knew people who did that kind of work. She'd used them before. Option 2. Do what Darnell said. Tell the truth. Watch everything burn. She stared at the list for 3 hours. Her father called. She let it go to voicemail. Listened to the message later. "Lillian, sweetheart, I'm hearing troubling things. Call me. We need to discuss damage control." Damage control. That's what he'd always taught her. Protect the image. Protect the brand. Never admit fault. She thought about Darnell standing in his kitchen, the way his voice never rose, the steadiness in his dark eyes. The truth is the only negotiation that lasts. Saturday night, another email leaked. This one was worse. Evidence that Turson executives had joked about the contamination. Called customers collateral damage. Lillian's board chair sent a single text. Monday morning, your resignation. Don't make this ugly. She sat on her penthouse floor, knees pulled to her chest, designer suit wrinkled, makeup gone. Just her and the city lights and a choice that would define everything that came after. Sunday morning came too fast. She made coffee with shaking hands, watched the sun rise over Atlanta, thought about who she wanted to be when this was over. At 8 a.m., she called Turson's CEO, a man named Richard Holloway, Yale, old money, the kind of person who measured worth in quarterly earnings. Richard, this is Lillian Cross. Lillian, I hope you're calling with good news. I'm calling to tell you what you need to do. Issue a public acknowledgement of the contamination. Offer Aaron Lim a formal apology. Settle with him without an NDA. Silence. You've lost your mind. No, I've found it. This is the only way forward. Do you understand what you're asking? That'll cost us hundreds of millions in lawsuits, shareholder revolts, congressional investigations? Yes. Then you're fired. Meridian Global is done. I'll make sure every client you have knows you're incompetent. Lillian's hand tightened on the phone. Then do it. I'm done covering for you. She hung up, sat in silence, waited for the panic to hit. It didn't come. Just exhaustion and something that felt almost like relief. Her phone rang 20 minutes later. Richard Holloway again. Our lawyers say the evidence Aaron Lim has will bury us anyway. If we don't control the narrative now, we lose everything. So you'll do it? We'll issue the statement Monday morning. But Lillian, his voice was ice. You're finished in this industry. I'll make sure of it. I know. She hung up, stared at her phone. Then she pulled up Darnell's number, the one he'd given her months ago, before she knew who he was, when he was just the man who mopped floors. She typed, "It's done. Turson is issuing the statement Monday morning. Now will you help?" She hit send before she could second-guess herself. 3 minutes passed. 5. 10. Her phone rang. Darnell? Give me Aaron Lim's contact information. His voice was quiet, calm, the same voice that had dismantled her 4 days ago. Lillian's hands shook as she pulled up Aaron's file, sent his phone number, his email, his last known address. Thank you, she whispered. The line went quiet. She thought he'd hung up. Then, this doesn't fix what's broken between us. I know, but it's the right thing, so I'll do it. He disconnected. Lillian sat on her couch, watched her phone, wondered if Darnell Price could really do what he'd said. If a man who'd been invisible for 10 years could talk down someone the entire media couldn't find. Across the city, in a small duplex in South Atlanta, Darnell stared at his phone. Aaron Lim's number glowed on the screen. He hadn't done this in 10 years, hadn't spoken the language of crisis, hadn't trusted his voice to carry weight. His hand was shaking. He thought about Keisha, about the last time he tried to save someone and failed, about the cost of using his voice again. Then he thought about Amara, asleep in her room, growing up watching her father hide. He pressed call. The call connected at 9 a.m. Monday morning. Darnell sat at his kitchen table, coffee going cold in front of him, phone pressed to his ear. Amara on the couch with her math homework spread out, pretending not to listen. Who is this? The voice on the other end was sharp, suspicious. My name is Darnell Price. Lillian Cross gave me your number. I don't talk to Lillian's people. I'm not her people. Silence then. What do you want? Darnell's hand was steady now. His voice dropped into the register he hadn't used in 10 years. Calm, measured. The tone that said he had all the time in the world. I want to listen. Aaron Lim laughed, bitter. Everyone wants to listen. Nobody actually does. You're right. More silence. Longer this time. Turson issued a statement this morning, Darnell said. Public acknowledgement of the contamination. Formal apology. Settlement offer without an NDA. It's on their website now. I don't believe you. Check. The line went quiet. Darnell heard typing, clicking. Then Aaron's breath changed. This is a trick. It's not. They're going to bury me in lawsuits. Make me look like the bad guy. They always do. Maybe, but that statement is real, and it's permanent. Whatever happens next, that truth is on the record now. Darnell could hear Aaron breathing, fast, uneven. Why would they do this? Aaron asked. Why would they admit it? Because someone made them choose between the lie and everything else. Lillian? Yes. Aaron laughed again, no humor in it. The woman who spent 6 months trying to silence me suddenly grew a conscience? People change when the cost gets high enough. Or they just get better at hiding. Darnell leaned back in his chair. Let the silence sit. Gave Aaron room to breathe. You sound like a cop, Aaron said finally. I'm not. Then what are you? Someone who used to talk to people in crisis, before I stopped. Why'd you stop? Because I couldn't save someone who mattered. The honesty landed. Darnell heard it in Aaron's breathing, the way it slowed, steadied just slightly. My kids asked me yesterday if I was going to jail, Aaron said. His voice cracked. They're 8 and 10. They shouldn't have to ask that. No, they shouldn't. I just wanted someone to tell the truth. That's all I wanted, for Turson to admit they knew, to stop pretending. I know. You don't know. You don't know what it's like to watch people get hurt because a company chose profit over safety, to have the proof and watch everyone ignore it. You're right. I don't know that. Darnell stood, walked to the window. The morning light was gray, rain starting to fall. But I know what it's like to carry something heavy alone, he said quietly. To feel like no one's listening. To watch the system protect itself instead of the truth. Aaron didn't respond, but he didn't hang up either. The statement is real, Darnell continued. They admitted fault. They apologized to you by name. The media is already covering it, not as a cover-up, as accountability. For now. Yes, for now. And tomorrow they'll start the lawsuits, the character assassination. They'll make me regret this. Maybe, or maybe you've already won what you came for. The truth is public. You can walk away now. With what? I'm unemployed. Unemployable. My savings are gone. My ex-wife thinks I'm crazy. My kids are scared. Darnell closed his eyes. Aaron, what do you need? The question sat in the air between them. I need someone to hear me, Aaron whispered. I need it to matter that I tried. It does matter. How? Because you forced a company to tell the truth. Because other people at other companies will see what you did. Because your kids will grow up knowing their father stood up when it was hard. Aaron was crying now, trying to hide it, failing. Darnell waited. Let him cry. Didn't fill the silence with empty comfort. After a long moment, Aaron spoke. If I stop the leaks now, they win. They get to control the narrative. They already lost control. The statement's out. You can't unring that bell. But I have more. I have emails they don't know about. Proof of executive bonuses paid while they covered up the contamination. I believe you. So why should I stop? Because you're not doing this for revenge anymore. You're doing it to hurt them back. And that's not the same as justice. Silence. You've been carrying this for 2 years, Darnell said. You've sacrificed your job, your savings, your peace. You've done enough. Have I? Yes. Aaron's breath shuddered. If I stop now, will they still sue me? I don't know. Will I get my life back? I don't know that either. Then what do I get? You get to put it down. The line went quiet. Just rain against Darnell's window. The sound of Amara turning a page on the couch. The statement stays up? Aaron asked. Permanently? Yes. And they apologized. To me. By name. Yes. Okay. Darnell's hand tightened on the phone. Okay? I'm done. No more leaks. Tell Lillian. Tell her I'm done. Thank you. Don't thank me. I didn't do this for you. I know. Aaron hung up. Darnell stood by the window, phone still pressed to his ear, listening to dead air. His hand was shaking again, but his breathing was steady. He lowered the phone, stared at it for a long moment. Then he sat down on the couch. Just sat. Didn't move. Amara closed her math book, scooted closer, put her small hand on his arm. You saved someone, Daddy. Darnell shook his head. I just listened. He saved himself. They sat together in the quiet. The rain picked up outside. The duplex creaked and settled. By noon, Turson's statement was everywhere. CNN, the Wall Street Journal, Twitter exploding with commentary. The company's stock dropped 12%. 3 executives resigned. A congressional investigation was announced. The media called it accountability, a turning point, proof that whistleblowers could win. Lillian's firm was credited with facilitating the resolution, not covering it up, facilitating accountability. It wasn't a victory. It was survival with dignity. At 2 p.m., Darnell's phone buzzed. A text from Lillian. Thank you. He read it, didn't respond. Instead, he opened his contacts, found her name, stared at it for a long moment. Then he deleted it. The number vanished from his phone. No trace left, just empty space where 4 months of something had been. Amara looked up from her homework. Was that her? Yeah. Are you sad? Darnell thought about that. No, baby, I'm just tired. Did you help her? I helped someone who needed it. That's different. Amara nodded, went back to her math. Darnell stood, stretched. His shoulders ached like he'd been carrying something heavy and finally set it down. He made grilled cheese for lunch, extra butter the way Amara liked it. They ate together at the table, talked about her day, about her friend Maya, about nothing important, normal, quiet, ordinary. And for the first time in 10 years, Darnell's voice didn't feel like something dangerous he had to keep locked away. It just felt like his voice. 6 months later, Darnell stood in front of 20 students at Georgia State University. The classroom smelled like coffee and old textbooks. September sunlight came through the windows, warm and easy. The students sat in a semicircle, notebooks open, watching him with the kind of attention people gave when they actually wanted to learn. Most of them were young women, black and brown faces, future social workers, community mediators, people who'd chosen professions that required them to listen when everyone else had stopped. Darnell wore jeans and a button-down shirt. His close-cropped hair was a little grayer than it had been 6 months ago. His dark brown hands rested calmly at his sides as he spoke. Conflict de-escalation isn't about winning an argument, he said. His voice was quiet, steady. It's about making space for someone to step back from the edge they've climbed out on. A student raised her hand. But what if they don't want to step back? Then you listen anyway. You validate their pain. You name what they're feeling even if you can't fix it. He walked them through scenarios, domestic disputes, workplace conflicts, crisis calls from people who'd run out of options. He taught them to slow down, to ask open questions, to never assume they knew someone's story before they'd heard it. Amara sat in the back of the room organizing handouts. She was 10 now, taller. Her barrettes were purple today. She handed out worksheets with the efficiency of someone who'd done this dozens of times. She caught her father's eye and smiled. The class ended at noon. Students gathered their things, asked questions as they filed out. One stayed behind, a young woman named Destiny who wanted to work in domestic violence intervention. Mr. Price, can I ask you something? Go ahead. How do you not take it home with you? The stuff people tell you, the pain. Darnell thought about that, about Keisha, about all the years he'd carried other people's crises and forgot to protect his own life. You do take it home, he said finally, but you learn what's yours to carry and what isn't. You learn the difference between helping someone and trying to save them. Destiny nodded, thanked him, left. Amara came over with the leftover handouts. You're good at this, Daddy. You think so? Yeah, you make people feel safe. They walked to the parking lot together. His Honda Civic looked even older next to the students' cars. But it ran. That was enough. On the way home, Darnell thought about Lillian. He did that sometimes. Wondered how she was. If she'd rebuilt. If she'd learned anything. 2 weeks ago, a card had arrived in the mail. Cream-colored, expensive paper. Her handwriting on the envelope. Inside, just 4 words. Thank you for seeing what I couldn't. Darnell had read it once. Filed it in a drawer. Didn't respond. He'd heard through professional circles that she'd lost her CEO position. That Meridian Global had pushed her out despite the Turson resolution being credited as ethical crisis management. That she'd rebuilt as an independent consultant. Smaller office. humbler clients, work that focused on accountability instead of cover-ups. He hoped that was true, hoped she'd found something real, but it wasn't his story anymore. Saturday afternoon, Darnell and Amara drove to Oakland Cemetery. The sky was clear. The air smelled like cut grass and late summer. Keisha's grave sat under an oak tree. The headstone was simple. Her name, her dates, social worker, beloved wife and mother. Amara carried a drawing she'd made, colored pencils on printer paper. Her father standing in front of a classroom, students in chairs, light coming through windows. She placed it on the grass in front of the headstone. The wind pinned it against the stone. "Hi, Mama," Amara said softly. "I brought you a picture of Daddy teaching." Darnell knelt beside his daughter. His hand rested on the warm granite. "Hey, Keisha," he whispered. They sat in silence for a while. Just the sound of wind through leaves, cars passing on the street beyond the cemetery fence. "Daddy," Amara said finally. "Yeah, baby. Do you think you'll ever fall in love again?" The question didn't surprise him. Amara had been asking versions of it for months, testing, trying to understand if her father's heart was still capable of opening. Darnell looked at his daughter, at the way sunlight caught in her hair, at the strength in her small frame, at the person she was becoming. "Maybe," he said, "when I meet someone who loves me because of who I am, not because of who they need me to be." Amara thought about that. What's the difference? One person sees you whole. The other person sees a shape they want to fill. Which one was Miss Lillian? Darnell smiled sadly. She saw a shape, but I think she's learning to see people differently now. Do you miss her? No, I miss the idea of what we could have been if she'd been ready. Amara leaned against his shoulder. They sat that way for a long time, the sun warm on their backs, the cemetery peaceful around them. "I love you, Daddy. I love you too, baby." When they stood to leave, Darnell looked back at Keisha's grave, at the drawing Amara had left, at the oak tree casting shadows across the stone. A small smile touched his face. "Proud of you?" he whispered. They walked back to the car, Amara chattering about her friend Maya's birthday party next weekend, about the book she was reading, about whether they could get pizza for dinner. Normal, ordinary, perfect. "What do you want for dinner?" Darnell asked as he started the car. "Can we make tacos?" "We can make tacos." "The ones with the black beans?" "The ones with the black beans." Amara grinned, buckled her seatbelt, turned on the radio. Darnell pulled out of the cemetery parking lot, glanced in the rearview mirror one last time. Keisha's grave growing smaller behind them. He wasn't invisible anymore, wasn't hiding in night shifts in silence, wasn't carrying the weight of a life he'd walked away from. He was teaching, raising his daughter, using his voice again. He was exactly who he needed to be. Love is not a mirror for our own virtue. It is not a campaign to prove our evolution or a charity case to validate our worth. Love is the courageous, unglamorous act of seeing someone fully, not as they can serve us, but as they are. Anything less is loneliness, wearing the costume of connection, and it will always collapse under the weight of truth. The people we overlook carry extraordinary stories. The ones we underestimate often hold the wisdom we need most. And the greatest gift we can give another person is not our fixing, not our saving, not our need to be validated through them, but simply our willingness to see them, whole, true, as they are. Darnell drove home through the warm September afternoon, Amara beside him. The future uncertain but no longer frightening, the past honored but no longer defining, just a father and his daughter, heading home to make tacos, living a life that mattered not because it was extraordinary, but because it was real.